Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
The day before Thanksgiving is a battlefield in any grocery store, but I hadn't expected to be part of an actual skirmish over a turkey. I'd made the rookie mistake of leaving my shopping to the last minute, and the store was chaos. People shoved carts through narrow aisles, scanning shelves like vultures hunting for scraps. The tension in the air was enough to make everyone snap at the slightest provocation. I was just there for the essentials and my turkey, which I'd wisely pre-ordered. That's where the trouble began. The grocery store felt more like a war zone as I navigated the aisles. People were frantic, grabbing at shelves with the kind of desperation you'd expect in a post-apocalyptic movie. A woman 2 aisles over was arguing with her husband over sweet potatoes, and a man near the canned goods looked about ready to body slam someone for the last can of cranberry sauce. I clutched my list tightly, reminding myself that I just needed to grab my turkey and get out before I became part of someone's holiday meltdown. After what felt like an eternity of dodging abandoned carts, sidestepping toddlers throwing tantrums, and avoiding the dead-eyed stares of overworked employees, I finally made it to the pickup counter. There it was, my turkey. It was glorious, the kind of turkey you see in commercials, perfectly plump, golden in my imagination, and large enough to feed my group with leftovers to spare. Relief washed over me as the clerk handed it over. For a moment, I felt victorious, like I'd won the Thanksgiving lottery. I carefully nestled the bird into my cart, securing it between a bag of potatoes and a container of rolls, then tightened my grip on the handle. No way was I losing this prize. With the confidence of someone who thought the worst was behind them, I began weaving through the crowd toward the checkout lanes, maneuvering my cart with precision as though I was making a daring escape from a heist. That's when she appeared. Out of nowhere, like a bad omen dressed in too much faux fur, there she was, Karen. Her cart blocked my path as if she'd been lying in wait for me. She looked like someone who had never been told no in her life. Her blonde bob was precision cut, her outfit screamed, upper middle class trying too hard, and the scowl on her face was sharper than any carving knife. She intercepted me near the frozen food section, her cart blocking my path like a roadblock. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cutting through the din of the store like nails on a chalkboard. There was a sharpness to it, a kind of authority that demanded attention without earning it. I stopped mid-step, startled, and turned to see her standing there with her perfectly coiffed blonde bob and an outfit that practically screamed. She wasn't just asking for my attention. She was it, like this was her store and I was just lucky to be shopping in it. Her hand, adorned with a chunky bracelet and nails painted a deep crimson, shot out as she pointed directly at my cart, specifically at turkey. "I need that turkey," she declared, her tone a mix of irritation and entitlement, as though this was simply a formality, and I'd surely hand it over without hesitation. She didn't even blink, just stared at me with an expression that could only be described as I blinked, caught off guard. Was she serious? My grip on the cart instinctively tightened. "A what?" I managed, unsure if I'd heard her correctly. For a second I thought she must be joking. Maybe she'd confused my cart with one of those unattended ones people leave while they run back for forgotten items. "Oh, this is my turkey," I said, keeping my voice polite. "I pre-ordered it." Her eyes narrowed into slits, her lips pressing together in a way that made her look like she'd just bitten into a lemon. You'd think I'd confessed to breaking into her house and stealing the turkey right out of her oven. "Well," she said, her voice sharp and biting, "I'm hosting 15 people tomorrow." She emphasized the number like it was a royal decree, her tone practically daring me to argue. 15. Do you have any idea how hard it is to feed that many people?" I raised an eyebrow, still holding onto my cart like it might roll away if I let go. "I'm sure it's hard," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, "but that's not really my problem. I pre-ordered this turkey." She huffed loudly, clearly unimpressed with my logic. "Look," she said, her tone shifting to something that might have been an attempt at persuasion but came off as patronizing. "You don't like you're feeding that many people. What do you have for? 5 at most. You can definitely find something smaller, but need that turkey. My guests are expecting a proper Thanksgiving meal." I stared at her, trying to process the sheer absurdity of what she'd just said. "What I look like feeding is irrelevant," I said, my voice firmer now. "This turkey is mine. I planned ahead and reserved it." Karen rolled her eyes so hard I thought she might sprain something. "Oh, come on," she snapped, her frustration bubbling over. "It's not like you're hosting a state dinner. You could make do with a ham or—" She waved her hand dismissively. "Whatever else is left, I need turkey. You don't even look like you're in charge of the cooking." My jaw tightened. Well, looks can be deceiving, and just because you need something doesn't mean you can take it from someone else. She stared at me for a long moment, her face twisting into a scowl. "You're being so selfish," she said finally, the words dripping with disdain. "People like you have no consideration for others." Was this woman serious? I glanced around, half expecting a hidden camera crew to jump out and yell, "Surprise!" But no, this was real, and Karen wasn't done. She didn't just glare at me this time, she moved. Her hand shot forward, those perfectly manicured nails gleaming under the fluorescent lights, zeroing in on my turkey like it was some sort of prize she was entitled to claim. There wasn't a moment of hesitation in her movements, no second thoughts about reaching into cart like she had every right to take what was mine. Her fingers were inches away from the plastic wrap when I reacted, yanking my cart back so hard it nearly bumped into a display of dinner rolls. My heart pounded in my chest, adrenaline surging as if I were defending my home from an intruder. I said, my voice louder now, sharp enough to turn a few nearby heads. I held the cart with both hands like it was a lifeline. "This is turkey. I reserved it. You should have done the same." Her hand froze mid-air, hovering awkwardly for a moment before she pulled it back with a dramatic flourish. The glare she leveled at me could have melted ice. "You don't have to be so rude about it," she snapped, her tone oozing indignation, as though was the one out of line. I tightened my grip on the cart, still standing my ground. "I wouldn't have to say anything if you weren't trying to it from me," I shot back, the word hanging in the air between us like a challenge. Her gasp was so loud and exaggerated that half the aisle turned to look. It was the kind of over-the-top performance you'd expect from a bad soap opera. "Are you right now?" she shrieked, her voice climbing an octave with every word. "You're really going to stand there hoarding that turkey like it's some kind of treasure while out here trying to provide for 15 people? Do you even know what that kind of stress is like?" She flung her hands up dramatically, as though addressing an imaginary audience. "This is what's wrong with people these days. No one thinks about anyone but themselves. You're being so unbelievably selfish. I can't believe this." Her voice grew even louder, practically ringing through the store now. "No compassion, none at all. It's Thanksgiving, for crying out loud, and you can't even be decent enough to help someone who's in a bind. What kind of person does that?" She jabbed a finger toward the turkey in my cart, her eyes wide with fury. "All I'm asking for is a little kindness, and you can't even manage that. It's disgraceful." "Compassion," I repeated, incredulous. "This isn't about compassion. It's about planning ahead." Her cheeks flushed a deep red, and for a second I thought she might try to lunge for the turkey again. I braced myself, half expecting a full-blown tug-of-war to break out right there in the frozen foods aisle. Shoppers were starting to notice the scene, their heads turning as Karen's voice grew louder. "You don't a turkey that big," she argued, her tone dripping with condescension. "You could make do with something smaller, but have a full house to feed. What kind of person hoards food like this?" I felt my patience slipping away. "I'm not hoarding food. I pre-ordered this turkey weeks ago so I wouldn't have to fight over one last minute. If you're hosting that many people, maybe you should have planned better." Her jaw dropped like I'd just told her Santa Claus wasn't real. "How you speak to me like that?" she hissed. "Do you have any idea what I've been through this week? A stress of hosting, cooking, cleaning." I cut her off. "You think you're the only one with a stressful week? Everyone here is trying to get through this madness. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to pay for my groceries." I pushed my cart forward, but Karen wasn't done. She shoved her cart into mine, blocking my path again. "You're not going anywhere with turkey," she snapped, her voice loud enough to draw even more attention. People were openly staring now, some whispering to each other, others pulling out their phones like they were hoping to catch the next viral video. A store employee approached cautiously, his face a mix of confusion and dread. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, glancing between me and Karen. "Yes, there's a problem," Karen barked. "This woman is trying to take the turkey I need for my family." The employee blinked, clearly caught off guard by the absurdity of the situation. Ma'am," he said, addressing Karen, "if the turkey was pre-ordered, it belongs to her." Karen's face twisted in frustration. "But I have 15 people coming over tomorrow. Does that mean nothing to you people?" "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but pre-orders are final. We don't have any extra turkeys in stock," the employee explained, his tone firm but polite. Karen let out an exasperated sigh, throwing her hands in the air as though I had just ruined her entire holiday. The way she did it, you'd think she was a martyr sacrificing herself for a greater cause. "Fine," she spat, her words sharp and laced with venom. "Go ahead, enjoy your stupid turkey. I hope it tastes as bland as you are." She glared at me with the intensity of someone who'd just been personally wronged by the universe. Her eyes narrowed, lips curling in disgust as she took a step back, hands on her hips like she was ready to make some kind of grand exit. "You know, it's nice to see that some people only care about themselves. I guess that's the world we live in now, huh? No empathy, no decency." She shook her head, clicking her tongue in exaggerated disbelief. As she turned, she shot me one last cutting look over her shoulder. I hope that turkey gives you food poisoning. You don't deserve to have a good meal, not after this. Then, with one final eye roll, she stormed off, her heels clicking loudly as if her dramatic departure needed to be heard by every person in the store. With that, she stormed off, her cart rattling as she pushed it toward the nearest aisle. The employee gave me an apologetic look. "Sorry about that," he muttered. "No need to apologize. It's not your fault," I replied, still clutching my cart like a lifeline. I made it to the checkout line without further incident, though I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting Karen to reappear and launch another ambush. The cashier gave me a knowing smile as she rang up the turkey. "You survived the pre-Thanksgiving rush," she said. "That's no small feat." I managed a weak laugh, still rattled by the encounter. "Yeah, and apparently I almost didn't survive a turkey thief. Thanksgiving dinner turned out great, but I couldn't stop replaying the scene in my head. I kept imagining Karen sitting at her dinner table, recounting her version of events to her guests, probably painting herself as the hero who was wronged by the selfish stranger at the grocery store. The worst part, I wouldn't be surprised if she tried something like this again next year.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.